Good morning and welcome to the Saturday special on my live comments. We often hear people say they are miserable, they are unhappy because they do not have money. And then all these conmen, all these religious leaders, all these coaches tell you being materialistic doesn't get you happiness. Money does not mean that you will be happy. Be unattached, be objective towards all the material things, then you will be happy. The relationship between mammon, that's money, and happiness has been a very troubled relationship. And both extremes, one saying that money cannot buy happiness, and the other says that happiness you can have without money or in the absence of money, are not very correct. Imagine two hypothetical people. One is a multi-billionaire and the other is an ordinary average person. And you give $1 million to both of them. As far as the multi-billion-dollar guy is concerned, he might not get any happiness at all because it's only an addition of certain zeros to his bank balance. But he would still be happy considering that he has more money in the bank. But materially his life doesn't change. He still travels, lives, eats, parties the way he used to do. On the flip side, for the average earner, these additional resources enable him to get better opportunities for his wife, for his kids, get out of debt, pay off all the mortgages, and improve work-life balance. So the increased resources translate for real change for the guy who is a middle income group, but for the filthy rich, I'm using filthy just to be in conformity with the so-called religious teachers who considered money and material to be mammon, not to be desired, not to be coveted. But the relationship between money and business is strong earlier for the countries. And you would see that the countries which are extremely poor would slip down the level of happiness. But not necessarily so. If we look at it, the happiest country in the world today is Bhutan. But the per capita income of Bhutan is very low. However, one thing is to be considered that each resident of that country has the basic necessities and basic comforts of the life. In case they had the poverty the way there are 270 million people in India who don't have 2 meals a day, then that country would not be the happiest country in the world. There's another country, Costa Rica. Average GDP per capita income is $15,000. And it's much happier than rich countries like Belgium, Germany, USA, and others. Look, another one, Qatar. Interestingly, Qatar is the costliest and the wealthiest country in the world. And the per capita income is $127,000. You can't even imagine that. And yet, it's one of the happiest countries in Africa and in Middle East. Nearby countries like UAE, Oman, Saudi Arabia, they are as rich as they are, but their happiness level is very low. So, you can be rich and be happy, and you can be poor and be happy. Qatar and Bhutan. Now the question arises, can money really buy happiness? There is a certain qualification. If you have money, And if you use money carelessly, only for the hedonistic pleasure, it will give you a bit of pleasure, but not real happiness. And if you spend the money for purposes other than just indulging, you might get more happiness. As there have been certain studies conducted by the National Academy of Science in USA, Canada, Denmark, and Netherlands. And they found that the people get more happiness when they spend money to buy simple comforts like getting a helping hand at the home, getting the cleaning services, getting the work done. So that way you can buy happiness. The right products to maintain and enhance your personal lifestyle can turn out to be important for well-defined happiness. But extroverts who spend money or rather splurge on money, for them it is a pleasure, but it's not happiness because it's very transient. So if you spend money in the right manner, then of course you can be much more happy. The consumer class always needs more money, but they don't have the life satisfaction. So you have got to have this on a equation where they run parallel but crisscross at the major moments. Being materialistic is important, but when it becomes an end in itself, then it loses all its importance. In the last few decades, people living in highly industrialized societies like Germany, China, USA, Canada have become increasingly materialistic, and there are two reasons for this. First, living up to Joneses. Your next door neighbor has all the materialistic things and the goods of life, why should you not have that? And secondly, the people in the highly industrialized countries are also essentially lonely. There is a psychological void in their life, and they become more materialistic to fill that void. So, partially, that's a way to happiness because the void is not there. You know, there's a certain level of money which you must have to maintain a comfortable style of living, not luxurious. And after that comfortable style of living, the increment in the happiness is not in line with the money you have. It has no direct proportion. Incrementally, your happiness would increase with each addition of money, but by a lesser degree. And a time would come when the money's addition would have no increment as far as your happiness is concerned, except for the people who are psychologically miserly and hoarders. The squirrels never have enough of it. They don't use it. They forget it. So what happens is, when the people are lacking something in their life and try to replace with materialistic possession, they fail. And people usually misjudge that the addition of materialism to fill the void in the life is not happiness. As a matter of fact, the pleasure fades with time as they adapt to having the whole product. You know, when any child, if you give him a lot of toys, he'll be excited, but then he will start ignoring it. And I've seen children that they have expensive toys and then they go to a very simple toy. That happens because happiness is not in the quantity. It is being able to commune with your inner self and the outer self. And then, For any materialistic, for any product that you want to have, materialistic product, the happiness would always be momentary. It will fade away. You will never have enough of good clothes. Women have never enough of their jewelry. You never have, if you want to have a bike, you want a motorbike. If you have a motorbike, you want a car. If you have a car, you want a limousine. If you have a limousine, you want a helicopter, and so on. Secondly, the feeling of insecurity is bred by being materialistic. And this feeling of insecurity essentially is a cause of unhappiness. Many girls, for example, are exposed to the unrealistic view that women who look like and act like Barbie dolls, they are very happy. But Barbie dolls are not happy. They might be good to look at, but inside they are deprived human beings. When I look at the people trying to ape their friends, their relations, when I see people trying to live up to the imagined, then they are unhappy. But if you lead a life full of all comforts, I'm not saying sacrifice your comforts, I'm not saying become a vagrant or a sadhu, leave your worldly possessions, because try to be a Gautam Buddha. Even Gautam Buddha wasn't happy that way. And my mark always has been that the people who say abandon things, they are not happy. They are in search of happiness, all right, which always eludes them. You know, happiness is like a musk in a deer. The musk deer smells the fragrance of the musk, but he doesn't know it's coming from his body. So he starts running after it and keeps on running after that, and then one day he dies, little knowing that the thing he was running after was within him. So materialistic things are required, they are a must. And they are a must till they complete and fulfill your sense of insecurity. But once you have reached that level, then running after them can be harmful. So then what happens? We have to rethink our relationship with the almighty dollar. In this interconnected world, the more power is held over individuals and nations by economic power, by money and the flow of finance. In many human crises, money plays a major role. It is both a problem and a solution. So that is a problem. And when you call it mammon, as Jesus called it, it's not. The problem with materialism, with the money, is not that it exists, but that it dominates. So if you have money that dominates you, it's bad. But if you dominate the money, it's good. So that's what's required. You have to dominate money, not the money dominate you. And materialism shouts so loudly that it overrides your caring for other people, even for yourself. This is demonstrable because you can measure things and ascribe value. But happiness cannot be measured. Happiness cannot be ascribed a value. Okay, you can measure it to some extent, but a value cannot be assigned to it. The monetary value, you can't count it in the name, shape of dollars. I was reading a very interesting book, The Shield of Achilles. And it charts the evolution of state. And he is very correct when he says that we no longer live in the age of nation state. We have passed that, the failed state. But we consume our products made globally. And that requires our transcending our desires as well to live globally with our better creative capabilities. So the negative attitude of money, which the sannyasis and the sages and the religions of all nature advocate, that's a negative attitude, that is bad. that kills you. And if it doesn't kill you, it cripples you. But a healthy attitude towards money adds to your happiness. The gift of free market to agreeably locate goods and the balance of the money to flow within the economy is relevant. But they are not gods. And God doesn't exist. So, money itself, materialism itself is not good and bad. It's our attitudes which can create a heaven of hell and hell of heaven. So the challenge is increasingly be aware. That's your need. You have to be increasingly aware how money affects you as individuals as well as at systemic level. Very often, we are responsible to work harder at maintaining this awareness and building habits into our nature that dethrone the emotional and ethical control that economics over had. So your emotional and your ethical values, your human values, if they are cowed down, suppressed by materialism, then money is bad and you cannot be happy. But if you have sufficient money, you know how to use it sagely, intelligently, without in any way impacting the higher values of life and your creativity, your identity, your entity, then there is a connectivity. So to say that money and happiness are not interconnected is wrong. Money is happiness, happiness is money, but with a rider, as long as you don't let human values, ethical values, your personal values override the money. So happiness can be purchased, but in a limited manner. Thank you.